about the metabolic contributions of Grassroots. Then we had a second seminar about environmental conflicts and contestations. Then we had a third about grassroots value creations beyond monetary valuation. And today's theme is the governance of the regime of space for just post growth cities. My name is Patrick Zapata, and together with Blanca Cayenne, I will be moderating this webinar. Blanca is Associate Professor at Department of Social Psychology at Autonomous University of Barcelona, as well as one of the co-founders of the Repair Movement in Barcelona. And I am a Professor of Public Administration at the University of Gothenburg. Today's webinar is titled Grassroots Spatial Governance. Circular grassroots initiatives are key to just post-growth transitions and circular urban economies. They create value with minimal resources, but often struggle to access and secure space where to do this. They rely often on temporary or negotiated arrangements. However, across European cities, new models for accessing and governing such spaces are emerging. And in this webinar, we will explore these approaches and examine how local government can support grassroots. We will address key questions like what resources are needed to support grassroots spatial governance, such as knowledge, funding, time, staff, physical space, what conditions and criteria shape access to space. And during the seminar, we will first enjoy 4 presentations from panelists with different experiences of spatial governance of grassroots, followed by a reflection from one of our invited discussants, and finally a panel discussion where you, as participants, also are invited. And with this framing, I'm quite pleased to introduce our 4 panelists and discussants, and I'll take them in their order they will talk. Daniel Pardo will talk first about the experiences from Caixa de Eines e Feiras, a library of things in the center of Barcelona that has an economic support from the city, but they maintain their self-dependence through communitarian management, meaning that the space belongs to the city, but is managed by the grassroots themselves. Our second speaker is Álvaro Porro González. He's Director of Social Impact Economy at Barcelona Activa, a local development public agency, and he will talk about their grassroots supporting program. And then we have Isabel Medina, responsible for sustainability work in one of Poseidon districts. Poseidon is a municipal housing company in Gothenburg. And they see the residents' engagement as a key driver for a vibrant and sustainable neighborhood. And by offering a shared space called Navet, or the Hub, Poseidon aims to enable and learn from the work of the grassroots. And this hub includes offices, meeting rooms, and areas for activities. Finally, of the panelists, Louise Clément from Plan B, a grassroots space located in the largest working-class neighborhood in Nantes, France. Plan B was formed by local initiatives to meet their need for space, and it hosts activities such as cooking collective, bike repairing, and a thrift store. And we will hear about how the association manages to build the grassroots projects and how it negotiates with the municipality that is sometimes a partner and sometimes an obstacle for this space access. And finally, but certainly not least, our discussant, Federico Savini, who is Associate Professor in Environmental Planning, Institutions and Politics from the University of Amsterdam, will give his reflections from the 4 panelist presentations. And of course, during the presentations, you are most welcome to ask questions in the chat. If we can mute. You can ask questions in the chat during the presentation discussion, and then we will pick it up from there. And eventually, we will also open up for everybody to ask questions. And by this, I turn to Daniel and say the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, and hello everybody, and thank you for the invitation and taking us in count. So I was asked to prepare a presentation of our project, I was also told to send some images, which I forgot, but I just did it right now. I don't know, Patrick, if you can still share that. In fact, there are just some photos of some workshops and then a video explaining this very precise moment we're living nowadays in Caixadenas, which I will explain nextly. So, as Patrick said, Caixadenas is a library of things, as there are some others in the city of Barcelona and also in Catalonia and in so many other places. I have to say that here in Barcelona, it's a quite recent kind of projects developing in the city. I think 6-7 years ago, there was not one library of things in the city, and nowadays we're about 5, I guess. And it's the same time, it was the same thing, I'm sorry, for Catalonia, and I already lost the count of the total number of them existing in Catalonia. I guess they mustn't be far from 12 libraries of things. So coming back to Caixadenas, whose full name is Caixadenas y Feinas, which is kind of words game. Caixadenas in Catalan means toolbox, and feinas, which is a very similar word to the one meaning tools in Catalan, is for jobs. It means jobs or small jobs. And so this is because even if our main task is about loaning every kind of object for temporary use, such as so many other libraries of things do, we have this smaller service, which is about keeping and sharing the contacts of different professionals that can do a service for somebody needing it in the neighborhood. For example, somebody must need someone to paint their walls or to repair something, and then we just put in contact the two people, and then they find their own deal to do it. I would also like to speak a little about the where we are in the, as Patrick said, we are in the city center in Barcelona. So more precisely in the neighborhood of Santa Caterina, and even more precisely in a square quite particular and different in the city center. And this is important. I mean, we are here not by chance, but because this is a special place in the neighborhood. It's a very big square that was born, such as it is nowadays, as a consequence of a grassroots struggle in the city, in the neighborhood against a urban development plan. Thank you. That's the square. That was done by the city council, and that was really a disaster. So there was a big struggle for years, and finally people won. And nowadays the square is such as you can see on the photo, which is very different from so many other ones in the city center, which are hard floor squares. So here we have more green, we have a smooth floor, and so many things happening in it. It's somehow the place where so many things in the neighborhood happen. And so that's mainly why, first, I mean, the reasons why we chose or tried and luckily got to be here is, first of all, because we live in this neighborhood since quite many years. It's my case and the one of other fellows. And also because it's a very lively square, and so it was interesting to be here in the middle of the place where so many things happen. So as I said, as a library of things, we lend every kind of objects, not only tools. We gave ourselves this name because we consider that all the objects that we loan, from the tools to sewing machine, or then a ladder or a wheelchair, they're all of them somehow tools, what we call communitary tools. And so we loan them at a very low price, which is can also be for free if the one looking for them has a difficult situation. And nowadays we're also moving into free loan, or what we call almost free loan for everyone, which means that we'll keep on taking the small amount of money for every loan, which is usually not more than €5 a week, for the most expensive. We'll keep on taking this money, but if the object is correctly returned in the due time, we'll give the money back. And this is mainly because luckily we don't need that money anymore, which wasn't, it didn't represent in all the year a big amount of money, but it helped us. And in the same time, because people using Caixa de Einas are quite respectful with the objects, but not that much with the dates for returning the objects. So this way we expect to promote the return in the due time. And this better economical situation comes from the fact, I think that's one of the reasons why we've been chosen to be here today. And it's the fact that nowadays Caixa de Einas, which began as an associative autonomous project, has become a part of a public social center, which is also in this very square. And so we have a bigger and more constant economical support from the city council. And this is great to us because in the first 3 years until we got to this status, we had to apply for grants and then justify them all the time. And this didn't let us to focus on the project itself as much as we wished. And the last thing to say is that we have become a part, as I said, of a public center, but it's a public center, and this is the interesting part, I guess, managed by associations of the neighborhood. So the short experience of Caixa Deinas until now, becoming a public service, and the long experience of this social center, this public social center of more than 14 years already, is that until now we got to keep our autonomy. So it's a hard balance. It's a balance hard to keep, but until now we're happy with this experience. It's far from being the only one in Barcelona. There are so many public centers managed by associations in Barcelona, but it's the only one for a library of things. So that's more or less what we wanted to share with you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Daniel. For timekeeping, we just go on directly, and yeah, thanks, applause to Daniel. And we just go on to Alvaro, and I invite you when you're ready. And I will
Hello,
also
can
share
you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, let me start without the images. I will ask you to use them. So thank you for the invitation, and yeah, and thank you everyone for the interest to get to know about our perspective on that from Barcelona. Really nice to have this first presentation from Daniel, and yeah, an amazing community-based project in the center of Barcelona, which is always challenging in a really touristic city, which is very, yeah, it's having a big pressure of gentrification and keep these community-based projects in the center. So, yeah, just to mention that special value of the project that Daniel just present. I'm gonna make I'm kind of somehow representing a bit like public administration here in general. I mean, for this conversation. So I'm gonna just take my role on that, and also taking advantage of my experience in both sides, being part of grassroots or community-based projects, asking for yeah, public policy support or public policy tolerance sometimes on sometimes public policy yeah, resources. I've been in this both sides, and now that I've been for quite a while in the public administration side, trying to promote that from inside. I would like to first make some more general reflections, maybe some a bit uncomfortable, but that's my role, both sides. When I'm in a public administration conversation, I'm the one there defending the community-based projects and why we should support them and take the risk and blah blah blah. But when I'm in a community-based conversation, I try to, yeah, think about the limitations and the challenges and how we could relate to the public administration, because we need to have a strategical perspective on that. We should be, yeah, let's say we should be strategical on that and learn from success and mistakes. So I will make some general reflections. Of course, we could give us a long debate, but we don't have the time. And then just explain us like very briefly the policy that Barcelona Municipality is having on this allocation of spaces, which is I've been asked to focus on allocation of space, which is probably related to some of the things that Daniel just mentioned for their case. So the relation between public administration and grassroots initiatives or community-based initiatives is always complex, challenging, I would say. And I would say also it could be very fruitful, but then we have to think in both sides, understand the other's needs on that relation to happen. Yeah, first thing I would like to just mention about what are the challenges, I think, for community actors, which I think we shouldn't yeah, forget or not have a focus on that, because we can work on them. But a lot of times there is a very strong, let's say, normative clarity, means values, visions, ideological perspective, but that's a limited strategical and operational capacity, and we should work on that and see what are the resources that can help to get more strength strategically and operationally, because that will give us a lot of more capacity and legitimacy to manage public resources and public assets. A lot of times that has to be with the scale problems, but a lot of times has to be with fragmentation, with the weakness of coordination, with this ambivalence relation with public administrations, which sometimes lacks this strategical perspective and understanding how is the codes of public administration. And yeah, I think we should, especially the people like me that we have had this experience, try to help to strengthen that capabilities. And from Barcelona Activa, so local development agency, we are having this approach, try to help to strengthen the organizational capabilities and force of these kind of projects, like we do with enterprises. Of course, it's different public, but we need to work on that. Like we offer these services to strengthen the capabilities of the enterprises, how we can strengthen the capability, organizational and operational capabilities of grassroots projects. Then public resources allocation and public resources and public spaces allocations or assignment depends on a lot of things, legal aspects, which we could not get into it right now, and which conditions very much a lot of times the thing. But a lot of times it depends also on the kind of broad legitimacy that the projects that they have. And in this sense, I think we have to mention two elements of community-based project. One is the risk sometimes of community endogamy, which means there's could be sometimes tendency to be very much self-referential, and that means the participation is concentrated in similar social profiles. The internal language or the internal codes are excluding other people, outsiders. There is an informal leadership structures that sometimes lack accountability. The network sometimes could be a bit captured, no, a bit close. So I think we have to work strongly on that, but that is going to give us a lot of more legitimacy to kind of really demand for public resources allocation and public spaces allocation. So that we should actively support these community actors. That's really I'm a fully believer on that from public administration, but I think we need to also ask for that and ensure democratic standards of openness, diversity, and accountability also within grassroots projects. Because otherwise we could make ourselves the question, are we strengthening community ecosystems or reinforcing closed circles? And that's maybe a comfortable question, but we should make it always all the time to ourselves. Yeah, and the other element is the challenge of mainstreaming, and that's very related with that. It's like how we get out of some niches and really open our codes or ideological language or our engagement or the narratives or the way we translate and adapt what we are proposing, so we could really mainstream somehow our activity, our proposals, etc. And then the challenge in the public administration side on that is like how we can really make participation as not a formal or a normative kind of ideal, which at the end of the day, people don't really know what is really having an impact in policy, in public policy, or in resources allocation, and how we can make it real, have clarity on the impact, on the results, on what is the real allocation of resources, what are the real outcomes, how we are really integrating diversity. Yeah. So just this very brief general reflections, and just on the project, just put the images, Patrick, please. I will go very fastly on a public policy from Barcelona municipality, which I think is interesting on that side. This map is the map of all the public spaces that are somehow assigned or allocated in grassroots or community-based organizations. The yellow ones are will be public assets, and that means you can find here from buildings of different kinds of buildings or spaces, from the very big ones to very small ones, but also kiosk or even the ground floor or social housing. So there's a lot of diversity here, and that's why you have so many possibilities. But as you can see here, you have 380 of the yellow ones. The red ones are which is called civic management, which Daniel just mentioned, which is public facilities which provide services but are directly managed by grassroots or community-based organizations or projects. And there's almost 60, the red ones. And then the blue ones are the ones are very, very singular ones, which are difficult to classify in these two big blocks. But just to give you a perspective of the size of it. Next image, please, Patrick. Yeah, next one. That I won't stop on that. This is just the explanation of the map. So there's, as I said, there's different buildings from this, for example, in one side is just one ground floor, and the other one is a whole building. The one is very not, is just a neighborhood group space, and the other one is really a facility of the municipality with all the logo and everything on the door, like is like a public service, but managed by grassroots groups. And you have here also, of course, also plots, like sometimes are for cooperative housing building, but sometimes it's for urban gardens. So you have a very, very, very amazing diversity of public resources, public assets that are being managed and assigned and allocated by this system. This next one, please. Next one. This is not translated, but this is an scheme. I don't know. The one before. Yeah, I don't pretend you understand the way it works, but this public policy of allocating public spaces on grassroots and community-based organizations has a whole circuit which is very defined, where you have to present your proposal, which is going to be the place where it's going to be decided, who is taking part of this decision, how is going to be the criteria, what is going to be the follow-up afterwards, what is going to be the accountability of that. And for that, that's why it's very important to make a whole policy with very clear resources and very clear steps, so that really the grassroots groups can really go for it and know what are they having in front of them. Next one, please. This one is just focus on the civic management of public facilities. This picture, for example, is from Ateneo Popular de Nou Barris. It starts even in the dictatorship times. That's one of the oldest, but we have a lot of other examples. And you can see all over the city, you can find these examples of public facilities that are managed by these organizations. This is almost 60, 58, and you have very, very different models: youth centers, civic, cultural centers, sports facilities. Next one, please. And I finish with that, which is very much linked with some of my first reflections. We need to give it this democratic standards base to all these kind of public resources allocations with grassroots groups. And for that, we are using a tool from the social and solidarity economy ecosystem, which is the community balance sheet, which is a self-diagnosis tool. So where we can evaluate all these elements that you can see here in the slide, which help us to kind of bring some accountability and some diagnosis to how the grassroots groups are using those resources and why it gives legitimacy to that allocation done by public administration. And I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, applause in place. And then we just carry on and invite Isabel Medina from Poseidon, the municipal public housing company from Gothenburg. Most welcome, Isabel.
Yes. Thank you.
Well, if you have a connection enough.
I do apologize that I can't use my video because our internet connection is down. Yes. Hör ni mig, Patrik, eller?
More or less.
Do you hear me? No.
Yes, we do.
Okay. You do? That's
Yes, just just go on. It seems like we hear you.
I'm responsible for the work with the sustainability at Poseidon, which is one of public housing companies in Gothenburg. We work to strengthen the areas we have shown in the city. mainly based on a strategy where an important part is to empower the residents in our areas and offer them participation in the development of their neighborhood. We see their engagement as a key driver of a vibrant and sustainable neighborhood, and we work together with grassroots initiatives to support this. By offering a shared space, we know that it's often difficult to maintain a local space due to high costs, where we offer grassroots initiative and other non-profit organizations the use of going. The space includes sitting rooms and areas for activities and can be. Our users have access to this hub from 8 in the morning to 12 in the evening, giving them many hours to use the space independently. The hub is centrally located in an area in the west of Gothenburg that's called Frölunda. It's situated right next to public transport and the largest square, which makes it also perfect to collaborate with our other actors in the area. Among the actors in the hub, there are a solidarity fridge, a tool library, and I don't know what it's called in English, but it's Smarta Kartan. Maybe you know that, Patrick or Maria Jose.
A smart map.
A smart map. Yeah, it's a map that locates circular initiatives in the area. And this one has a focus on the children and activities that are free for the children, and the children can themselves participate to identify these activities and also arrange them. I'm very proud of having them there. Well, through the establishment, there have been difficulties with trust from both the local initiatives and also from our own organization. At the beginning, we had trouble getting the users to trust that we wanted to offer this alternative without any real return, other than engagement in the development of the hub and caring for the collective community in the area. There have also been challenges with our organization where there has been concern about offering space in the premises in such a flexible way. As a public housing company, of course, we are used to have collaboration agreements that are more traditional and business oriented. So this has been quite from time to time. Our idea is that in the build today operates and that the hub should be made collectively. We hold house meetings and expectation for the participants. But we still have to limit parts of the practice because use the prep. In some case, there is an intermediary between us and the local initiatives when sometimes have been helpful and actually necessary. We have been careful with the security by requiring each party to have a badge approved and to sign an agreement regarding information security and common rules of conduct in the premises. I really think there are clear mutual expectations between us, which I think make both parties feeling more secure about this arrangement. The premises are, like they often are, being let early in Gothenburg while awaiting a major renovation of the building. So the grassroots initiatives are there on some time. Will make a difference. I'm proud of the hub. We have noticed that the local initiatives act more and more independently in the premises. The hub becomes more and more lively, and the activities grow organically as an important part of the neighborhood work. In Frölunda, we also have like a collaboration with Demokrati and Medborgarservice that are working with sustainability in the city, giving other actors support when it comes to sustainability. And we are entering a project with them to work with transition through collaboration, I think it's called. And well, it all makes me very proud. And now my voice is crackling. I'm so sorry, but I have a very bad throat today. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Isabel. Struggling with sound and voice. Still got the main message, I think. Thank you very much for that. And then I invite Louise Clermontel from Plan B in Nantes. You're most welcome. You tell me and I share your slides.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Do you listen to me correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the invitation, and sorry for my English. I didn't speak in English since a while, so it's kind of an exercise for me. I will tell you about a project in Nantes. It's in Bellevue. It's the largest working class neighborhood in the Nantes metropolitan area. It was first of all, we call it a third place here. It was designed by some associations to meet the space needs. It's quite particular in the temporality because the neighborhood is undergoing a urban renewal project spanning nearly 20 years that's bringing a profound urban and social transformation. We start with a collective of 5 associations with or without employees was formed to address these needs. Sustaining existing activities, expanding current activities, or launching new ones. In 2020, this includes a second-hand shop, a food distribution program using unsold groceries, shared woodworking workshop, and the digital mediation services. Today we are in industrial tent since mid-January, and there are about more or less 10 associations and entrepreneurs actively involved in the project, as well as some 30 organizations with it. Added is a large collective of residents who find the place in a different range of volunteer activity, like community cafe, surf store, workshop, bike safe repair station, concierge for senior, or of the term like food servicing. We are open more or less between 6 days by week, between 9:30 in the morning until 6 or 6 or 10 p.m. For the evening. It's a photography of today, but I will talk to you about more if you can launch the photography, the presentation. So today on the second one, you have it's where we are today in the industrial tents. We have 2 industrial tents, one to from a workshop, and one to have the other kind of services. But you can change the photography. I will talk to books because This project, it's architectural and urban transition project, first of all. We are in this kind of projects. It's and I will talk about which kind of relation we have with institution in a project. For everybody, it's a kind of experimentation. It's a lot of innovation. So we need to use a lot of how we can balance between how we worked in the field and because it's a grassroots project and how institutional works to have oh, to help us to develop in this kind of project. To make a perspective of what's the neighborhood is, it's called the project called Le Grand Bellevue. It's a large scale urban renewal initiative. It's 350 million investment. It's 900 new housing units. It's 1,300 renovated units and the creation of numerous public space, including about 10 parks. So Plan B, as an architectural project in this large-scale project, it's like a hand inside this huge and project. So we used to find a place in it, but it's quite very difficult to have a good relationship. We have a good relationship, but to have in how we used to work between institutional and our association. First of all, our proposal involves occupying vacant spaces in the area, ground floor commercial spaces, empty apartments awaiting renovation, and vacant lots left after demolition. So in the photography, you could see in red, it's in south part of the photography of the map, you have a bâtiment construction demolition in 2018, and in the north part, it's a demolition in 2024, if I remember correctly, and it's two places where we have managed to build a construction in it, and in the green tower called the Tour du Doubs, we project to have a ground floor experimentation in the second floor to transform apartments in offices. So our project is to have three different kinds of proposal, like an archipelago of spaces. We have this ground floor designed to host all kinds of events, including a kitchen and a cafe, apartments converted into offices. The project ended up becoming a squad for drug dealers, so it's wow. It's another kind of experiences with the neighborhood. And we used to have 500 square meters all that never saw the light due to a lack of funding in the bottom of the photography in the red part. Today we find we have the project is in north part with the two industrial tents where you have the red building we demolished in 2024. To talk about some kind of relationship with institution. In this context, our proposal is for the temporary use of vacant spaces addresses a dual challenge, meeting our needs for workspace while providing a concrete solution for local authorities and landlords to manage this site awaiting transformation. It also helps limit the impact of urban renewal on residents. You could imagine demolition, relocation, indeed have a huge impact on the neighborhood dynamics by eliminating space for social interaction, local services, and a form of solidarity in the neighborhood, because you have a lot of people who live left the place, and you have some people who were new in the neighborhood. So it had a huge impact for the people who live during the world project. It also in the neighborhood where vacancy can encourage unwanted occupation, squatting, illicit activities. So to maintaining a positive uses, it's a central challenge for all the people, the people who are living here, also the cities, also the social housing providers, the developers, the state. So we have to respond, to answer for each other, but it's difficult to find a good way to work. So the project is a short time in nature and require high degrees of responsiveness for the cities. To meet these needs, we collaborate with a collective of architects who serve both designers and builders. We develop self-build approaches, particularly through participatory construction projects for the renovation of existing buildings, and to some extent for new construction. And we have constantly adapt to institutional and operational constraints. We changed many time of projects, architectural projects, change in site of layouts, development related to property transfer, and architectural adjustments, sometimes driven by concern regarding use or management. It was a long and complex process, was required numerous back and forth iterations. But despite this obstacle, institutional timeline that sometimes clash with our needs, the necessity of establishing a common languages on what is a urban transitional project in this kind of huge project scale, the project benefited from decisive political support. Without certain exemption, particularly regarding of the regulation of the zone, of the area, or tax exemption, it will be not possible to have this kind of project. And it's for us, it's also a political project. We are outside of the box or what's happened in this kind of huge scale renewable urban project. And finally, we have beyond institutional frameworks, the project's success also rests a strong human relationship with some technicians of the city who stood by our side, which with warm bonds of trust and sometimes even emotional ties, we forge, allowing us to collectivity overcome difficulties. Through this project, we have all grown in our skills together. It's mainly the best part, I think, because you need to find some balance, and it's really an experimentation innovation project. So more or less, it's like we create the first one in the cities. We left. We hope a good feelings for everybody around what could happen in this kind of project. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Luis. Sorry. Excellent. I'm trying to talk and do reactions at the same time. I couldn't. Thank you to all the four panelists, and then we go directly to Federico Savini. You're most welcome with your reflections.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you for organizing this very nice webinar. I'm gonna just give a reflection on the issue of space, land, and architecture also in the context of circular grassroots projects. So in my own research with circular grassroots projects, particularly in Amsterdam, but it is very similar to what I hear from the speakers. One of the key issues of these projects is their long-term maintenance of the feature of autonomy and democracy that they try to perform. Okay, to be clear, many of these projects also often struggle to start, obviously, especially in cases like the last one we heard of Louis, like where there is a high pressure on development. But the larger majority of these projects actually exist in the city almost by nature. So they are popping up all the time. In fact, we could say that the more cities, in particular dense urban environments with high market pressures, the more they become wealthy in aggregate terms, and the more they become unequal socially, the more they tend to produce this kind of practices. So, for example, the map of Alvaro showed very well the concentration of these practices in the center of Barcelona. And I see that the same in Amsterdam. These are areas that are becoming almost unlivable for people with low income. And exactly there is a lot of grassroots organizations trying to provide essential services, mostly food, but also tools like the tool library, and other spaces for convivial activities, social activities, cultural activities, and so on. So they are there, but what happens is that they struggle a lot to maintain themselves in the long run. So some end up, end up actually dying, literally. They close off their activities after a few years. And some others tend to commercialize a bit more, tend to professionalize, commercialize a bit more, eventually rising the prices. And, in some cases also, it happens that they gave, at least in Amsterdam, they gave some sort of leverage to gentrification processes, something that is very undesirable from the point of view of those initiatives. So the question is maintenance. And if you look at this aspect, and we want to study how and intervene on how to make it easier, we can look at three types of needs that this circular organization have. And to put it simply, this circular grassroots organization needs three things. First of all, workers, so people with certain skills and know how to deal with the service that is provided. These skills don't have to be extremely complex often. Sometimes they are, but not necessarily. The second quality that is particularly distinctive for grassroots organizations in the circular economy is the materials that they use. Materials, I mean, not only material, but actually the objects, the objects that they share or that they lend to others. Just as we saw with the tool library, they need the tool in the first place. And the third characteristic is land and the real estate on the land. Okay, so these are three things that they all need all the time. Now, when we look at grassroots initiatives, we can, especially in the center of cities, we see that with regard to work, they often are quite well off. They rely a lot on voluntary work because they are place-based and because the communities, they understand very well what is their social and economic role. So in that sense, they're quite good, I have to say. You find always large communities of both voluntary and non-voluntary workers interacting in these initiatives. With regards to the materials, they're also often very well performing, in fact. Sometimes if it's harder for them to get these materials, they try to do it in networks where there is, in fact, an exchange of these materials that supplies basically these initiatives. This happens, for example, a lot in initiatives that are about organic food and organic farming in the circular economy. They share the organic waste that it's then reused in the farming by social projects, and they form networks in order to gather this particular material. Of course, then with community-supported agriculture, they also share the product of this farming and get back also some of the compost. But the third aspect is the land and the real estate. That's the most challenging, in fact. And I think what Alvaro showed us, it's very clearly one of the way to address that challenge. And I think if we look at how different municipalities, different projects address this challenge, we see different ways to do so. And actually, there is no one single way. Here in Amsterdam, we have a lot the role of the public that delivers land and real estate at low prices and low rents to social organizations. So this is a typical public ownership, civic run organization, okay? So the contract, it's obviously often temporary of 10 years first, sometimes it gets renewed to 10 years extra, but it's always a contract of lease to a certain, of a low price real estate. The key providers are in the Netherlands, not only municipalities, but also social housing associations. That's one model. The other model, and this is interesting, it's also private ownership. So we have many initiatives that buy eventually the real estate or the building or the shop or the space where they operate. Now, you might ask yourself, how is that even possible that they can buy it, in a very expensive market? Well, what you see there is, again, the role of the public to de-risk and subsidize this transfer. They do it with public subsidies, usually, or with public borrowings that are at low interest rates for this organization. So my point is that in both cases, we see what colleagues have called public-civic partnerships. Okay, there's always a partnership that establishes between a public organization and a civic organization, which then runs autonomously those spaces. And this partnership, it's very different than the public-private partnerships, obviously, which is interested in generating surplus that then gets transferred to other companies. This partnership doesn't generate profit per se, but all the returns of the activities are reinvested in the activity itself. So this is the first aspect that I find crucial for this maintenance. Obviously, the other aspect that happens a lot, and it works as some sort of amplifier of these partnerships, is to cluster activities. So many of the successful projects that we see, they cluster into usually a network or even a one building or a set of buildings that work together. We hardly see them in isolation. So if there is a tool library, we can find a repair cafe, and then we find a kitchen, a community kitchen, and next to it, sometimes we find some education activities for children or for families. We find organizations that use the spaces when the spaces are not used for other political activities, for example, and art and culture. So the clustering is another way somehow to de-risk or to reduce the risk of literally not surviving in the long term by these grassroots initiatives. So maybe these are the two inputs for discussion I want to bring there. One is this public-civic partnership that becomes fundamental to the survival of these initiatives, especially with land, and the other is the idea of clustering and forming networks, which might be even a spatial clustering, so gathering them closer to each other within specific neighborhoods. Just food for discussion, but thank you very much for inviting me to reflect on this beautiful presentation.
Thank you very much, Federico. Okay, we will pass now to the discussion, to the debate. So I suggest the 30-something people who are listening that can start thinking about possible questions or comments that they would like to share, or maybe if someone prefers to write down on the chat instead of speaking. So you can keep doing this while we start with an icebreaker for the 4 panelists. So we would like to, Álvaro, Daniel, Luis, Isabel, just ask you if you have some echoes or some reflection from Federico's discussion. If you would like to add or respond or comment anything.
I'd rather leave the room for the participants. Also, I have to leave kind of soon, so if I can get, if there's any comment or question on my presentation, I will appreciate to have it first.
Okay, for now there is just one comment from Cindy who says, yeah, thank you to the presentations. And she reflects about the use of the word community, which is quite different in all initiatives presentation, especially the first 3. If you could please elaborate on that, or what is a community? If you can respond, Álvaro, if you have to leave. If you can add something about this sense of community, and then we can continue.
Wow, this one is a challenging, complex question. We can get very philosophical here. At the same time, is I don't think it's really well defined legally or in practical terms. When we talk about community-based initiatives, so I wouldn't try to define community because I leave this for philosophers and community experts. But in our sense, for community-led initiatives, we talk about initiatives that are strongly based on volunteer work, but not necessarily, not exclusively, but like there is a strong dimension of voluntary work. There is not necessarily a strong weight of formal economic relation, although they could combine like both, like economic relations, formal economic relations, and not economic relations. And there is some kind of grassroots decision-making dynamic, which, like, let's say, people who are getting the impact in the positive sense are also somehow related to the people who are taking decisions. So it's not just like a kind of third person charity kind of thing. But that's really like now one of our 3 elements that we take into account. Although we have a more concrete definition of what we mean with community economy. In fact, the social economy Catalan new law, which is right now in the parliament trying to be approved, includes the concept of community economies, which is more or less based on what I just said. And it's going to be part of the social economy new law, which regulates from cooperative enterprises to foundations, associations, and with this form, which is called community economy, which could have a legal status or not necessarily. And we even find a way to recognize them for grants, which they can get grants, economic resources, although they don't have like a legal status, just using personal, individual, let's say, intermediation in legal responsibility terms.
Okay, thank you. Maria Jose, you raise your hand.
Thank you very much for all the very interesting presentations. I hope you can hear me. Probably the volume is not so good, but I think a common denominator in all the presentations has to do with the question of the local accountability of these projects, how municipal officers you struggle with the accountability of the values that these initiatives generate, and how the initiatives, the circular initiatives, also struggle to be accounted. So, and this is a question for everybody, but Álvaro, as you are leaving, it would be very interesting to get your insights as well. You were presenting this community balance sheet. So how do you do in order to get the necessary accounting without putting too much administrative burden on the grassroots, and at the same time not only measuring very narrowly what it has to do with monetary value or tons of waste that is being prevented? how do you do that? This is a 1 million question, I guess.
You are muted, Álvaro. I can.
Yes, sorry. Now,
Yeah,
right now. There is also another question on the chat related to the balance sheet, I think. Okay. I mean, it's a long topic, the balance sheet. First thing I would like to say that is based on a social economy ecosystem balance that they use for themselves. So it's an interesting process because the public administration gets to use a tool that is done by the grassroots and the social economy ecosystem for themselves, and we together with them we elaborate a version which is being used in a kind of formal way in order to get some accountability of the use of public resources and particularly public spaces. So I think that's very interesting. This process, the way it went, and how we use a grassroots tool for the public institutions. So related to the question you said about the balance, whether well, no, I think that was in the chat, whether it could be too bureaucratic. I think something like that. I mean, we have to differentiate two things. One is the legal accountability, which has to be with the commitments you get when you sign the contract of a public allocation of a space, and that gives you the right, but also the responsibility of using this space for wherever you said you were going to be using it, with the conditions you're going to be using, and you're going to make the maintenance or whatever is agreed, and that's done in legal terms, and that's honestly, it has quite a lot of bureaucracy, and it's quite difficult to avoid that bureaucracy, and that's something we are working on, but that's quite difficult because that depends on legal bigger frames, and we always have to say about public resources allocation, how to find this balance in between, because now when we think about projects that are ideologically aligned with us, that we all think, they are very connected with our values, with the community. But in some point, I don't know, extreme right government could be allocating those kinds of spaces in extreme right, I don't know, whatever groups. And at the end, they are public resources being used for some kind of goals. I'm just saying that we have to think also in another completely different scenario, but the rules has to be the same for everyone. And that's something that normally is not so easy to think about it. But from the public administration side, we have to think in that scenario, because then we make a lot now very loose frame now. Then, as we can see, it's happening somewhere else. Then it comes extreme right government and could allocate public resources to, I don't know, whatever you think you can imagine that is really like not going for the general interest. Anyway, so coming back to that, the legal part is full of bureaucracy. Honestly, we have to work on that, blah blah blah. But that's one thing, and the balance sheet is much based on a tool that it was done by the grassroots groups themselves. So it's not so much about bureaucracy at all. It's more about self-diagnosis and try to be. In fact, the slogan of this balance when it's being used by the economic system is "open your heart." No, like show what is going on inside. Show it off. Of course, you could lie and you could manipulate it, and that will be another process, which will be external verification with, and that we know how all that works, and that's expensive. So the elements that has to be really verified and has to be normally with economic resources and justification and stuff is done in the legal process, and that's with the bureaucracy. And the other one is more like a self-diagnosis, which you keep on pulling this process of presenting to society, what are you doing, why are you doing it. You could get feedback from outside, and you could get, and that I mean, if you want, we could get deeper on that, but that we don't have the time today, and that will be. And I will bring someone else, which is more an expert and is in the day-to-day of how it's being used. I don't know if I kind of answered the two questions at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would like to invite panelists if you want to comment anything among yourself or to Federico's and why you think about any question. Andreas, you raise your hand too.
Yes, thank you so much. My name is Andreas Litzegård. I'm from the School of Global Studies in Gothenburg, colleague of Maria. Nice to be here. And thanks so much for these very exciting and important presentations. I mean, I'm really overwhelmed by what's going on throughout Europe in terms of I mean, climate transition from below. It's really amazing. Also here in Gothenburg, of course. So thanks a lot. But I'd like to comment more on, it's more of a general comment to all of you, and based on Federico's very, very intriguing analysis. And I very much agree that these three areas that you mentioned, the resources of workers, manpower, and land, and also sorry, the third one, blackout. What was the third one?
Materials.
Yeah. Yes, materials, of course. But adding to that, I mean, also Maria, you mentioned accountability. I mean, that's also, of course, crucial. And the more non-material, symbolic sort of dimensions or criteria that we need to fulfill in order for these projects to work in the long run. I mean, it's also about legitimacy, I would say. I mean, many of these projects are actually happening in urban areas with very very gentrified urban areas. We heard that from Barcelona, for example, where it's almost impossible for hardly anyone to live there because of the high rents, and also being able to buy an apartment there is almost impossible. So how is it possible then to build up some kind of legitimacy towards the people living there? I mean, people from other social classes, rich people, middle-class people who live in those areas. But also in an area like Frölunda, for example, as we heard about before, the Poseidon example. I mean, where people from all different social classes are residing there, especially moving a bit outside of Frölunda. So in those kind of very mixed areas. But maybe dominated by a certain social class. How do you build up a legitimacy? Would be my question then, because for these projects to live, there has to be some kind of legitimacy from different people, groups, businesses, organizations, politicians working and living in those areas. And I was wondering if you could reflect on that, how you maintain, how you build and maintain that kind of legitimacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Andreas. Someone, would you like to respond, Andreas, about this question of legitimacy? Daniel, Luis, Abel, Federico. Yeah.
I can respond briefly. Thank you. I agree. The symbolic resources are very important indeed. But here, I think we need to observe more closely what happens in the case of different kinds of grassroots initiatives. So, if first of all, you have the initiatives in neighborhoods that are undergoing transformation and gentrification. In those cases, the legitimacy is actually there. In most of the cases, the population likes these initiatives to a certain degree, and they have already a quite strong social networks around them. The problem there is to protect them against the investment flows coming into the neighborhood in most cases. There is, of course, the interesting thing of this initiative also is that when the neighborhood changes, they're also usually very quick in also adapting and maintaining their legitimate position in the area. Differently, for example, from regular commercial activities owned by franchising, for example, they usually quit when it doesn't work anymore because it's not convenient anymore and it's part of a bigger machine. But in these cases, they are very adaptable. But this is what I'm saying, a case of areas undergoing development. The most interesting part, I think, is under areas that are somehow starting to be populated from uses that they were not originally social. So post-industrial, greenfield, or development of new neighborhood. There we have a different issue. Maybe it's not really the case of Luis, but kind of similar areas where the development needs to include these social activities as a social value. There, indeed, is true, as you say, the interlocutor of the public government is often the developer or the association of developers, and they need to be convinced somehow that these areas are important, these activities are important for their development. But that also, I mean, sometimes these developers are really myopic. They're not many of these developers, international organizations, investment funds, they have no idea what is the social tissue in which they are operating. And sometimes, they want fast money, and they tend to indeed ignore the necessary work to create a livable place through these initiatives. And that is the work that a public development agency could do. And I think Alvaro's case is clearly a public development. It's a development agency of social networks. It's not land development, but it's those agencies are very important to be part of the negotiations in these new developments. And of course, it's not easy because they don't bring in money. Obviously, they bring know-how and therefore are marginalized regularly. But I think they are the representatives of this future social economy. So the two cases are a bit different because I think legitimacy is very strong in the first cluster of examples. Yeah.
Thank you, Federico. Would anyone else add something from the panelists? If not, Maria Jose.
I have a question for the panelists. So, because another common aspect in all the presentations, I think, is the role of intermediaries. That was also alluded now by Federico, like we could tell that Barcelona Activa is some kind of intermediary, like a knowledge also broker, but also creating the regulatory framework for these initiatives to bloom. But in the case of Daniel, you are Grassroots, and now you are connected to an intermediary grassroots organization, which is the community center, that has more administrative muscle to do all this, to fill in all these forms, etc. And even Isabel, probably working in Poseidon, to create this space, you are connected to grassroots organizations like the Solidarity Fridge, but you've been also drawing advantage from some other more intermediate organizations that can help out in those conversations, and likewise would go for Louis. I don't know if you have some reflections about this.
Would you like to answer, Daniel, Isabel, Louis?
Yes, I think it's very helpful because, as I told you before, my organization is used to a special kind of model, rules that we have to have in our houses, to have an intermediary, ¿cómo se dice?
Intermediary.
Thank you so much, because I think in Spanish, I think.
Just speak Spanish.
Yes. It makes things much more easy because I'm quite creative, but my organization isn't. And then we have to build like a structure that's that is functioning in a public house company. So,
if I may, I think like the fact that you are saying that you are very creative, but your organization is more square. I think that resonates with many other people's experiences as well, and how many of these changes have to do with this relational engagement that we call that you engage even beyond the duties of the formal duties or description of your position. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I work. I adapt to the law, of course, but I'm really creative, and sometimes I think that these initiatives will die if I quit my job. Because it depends very much in my interest in this subject.
Thank you. Daniel, Louis, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I won't. I will talk about what Federico talked before. The large-scale project, urban project on the neighborhood. It's the principal objective. It's to mix. We have more social mixed population in the neighborhood. It's to we call it ghetto. Kind of thing, because it's only poor people with poor people in the area around the city. So the principal objective is to create more mixed population in the area. But you have a really impact. You have an impact on people who are living during the transformation. And what's going to happen in this kind of mixed population? Poor people with middle class people, it's not the same culture span in the same area. So our place, which it's kind of people we will meeting in this place, and we hope people we hold different kind of middle class and poor class, working class, will meet and share the same interest to participate in the project. But we know in the same time you have some kind of symbolic violence, because someone it's French is not the first language. You are not you're not used to how works an association, so we need to have have some special attention, or we can everybody can find a place in the project. And the second part, it's every part of gentrification of the neighborhood. Because we are here, we have our proposal. It is the beginning of gentrification. In the same time, it's very important for us to non have. It's maybe as strategic silent strategies, or to non. We don't have. We are very bad to do communication. We don't. We don't use social medias. We don't. People know the project because they're coming in on the area of in the neighborhood. It's a word of mouth. We need to. It's because we talk about, and someone talk about, so people coming. But we don't need to have some publishing in the large scale, larger scale than the neighborhood. It's very important for us. The project is for the neighborhood. We need the poor people coming in the neighborhood. I'm sorry, it's a bit of it's a kind of to use poor people, but it's historically a poor neighborhood, and we need to keep this. I used to live in the neighborhood. A lot of people also who worked participate in this project. So it's very important for us that to keep the same line, the same line. I don't know, but I think you understand what I want to say about it. And the second part of what I want to talk about is how we the particularity of landlord in this kind of project and what is our proposal for urban transition in the architectural project. We normally it's you have three kind of landlord. You have social providers, you have municipalities, and you have what we call aménageur. It's a kind of private and public enterprise. We coordinate the whole project. So it's in the same time they give us access to as landlord to field. But in the other time, we don't. It's a kind of particularity because we have a lease with this landlord. It's a free lease, but it's a lease of we don't own the field. And in the other side, we own the building on this on the field. So we are in this some kind of we don't. If we have a political change, more or less at any moment, someone can say that it's the hand of the project. You own the building, but you don't own the landlord. You're not the landlord. So we are in a kind of risky situation. Depend of political
Will?
Yeah, exactly. Political will. So it's a very important opportunity. It's very good opportunity for us. In the same time, it's a very risky opportunity for the project. And in the other time, the lease it's 7 years with the construction, so it's more or less impossible for us to have a loan to cover our the cost of the building, and in the same time find some founders. We can have a solidarity meaning to help us to building. So we are in this kind of it help us to build this project. In the same time, we have a lot of break around restraint situation, administrative situation, to have to finish with the former projects we used to have some.
Thank you. Okay, we are out of time. It's 1:30. So if Daniel, you want to add just one sentence or something, or if not, Patrick, if you want to say goodbye and make the welfare.
Yeah, but did you, Daniel? Or maybe you didn't. No,
No,
I think we had a great webinar. Of course, we can always continue hours and hours in these interesting subjects. I think simply we have to organize more webinars. That's the only conclusion I can. Well, it's one of the conclusions. I think was really rich and full, and I thank you all for participating, and especially the panelists and the discussants. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
And farewell.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very
you.
much. Have a
Bye.
good day.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.